I'm Sierra, 29, and I learned something important about love. Sometimes the man who makes you feel like yourself is the one planning to destroy you. 2 years ago, I met Gabriel in a bookstore in downtown Boston. Not some cute meet cute where we reached for the same book. No, I was the CEO of my father's tech company, wearing a power suit after a brutal board meeting. And he was the French guy in worn jeans reading poetry in the corner. He looked up, smiled, and said something in French that sounded beautiful. I had no idea what it meant, but I was hooked. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt completely out of your depth in love. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My life before Gabriel was all spreadsheets and shareholder meetings. I inherited my father's company when I was 26, after he passed from a sudden heart attack. Everyone expected me to fail. A young woman running a tech firm? The vultures were circling. But I proved them wrong. I worked 18-hour days, learned every department, and grew the company by 40% in 3 years. Dating was a disaster. Men were either intimidated by my success or interested in my bank account. I lived in a beautiful house worth $1.5 million, but I ate takeout alone most nights. My best friend Claire kept setting me up on blind dates with corporate types who spent dinner talking about themselves. I was lonely in a way that money couldn't fix. Then came Gabriel. He was different from the start. We talked for 3 hours in that bookstore about everything except business. He told me about growing up in Lyon, about his love for literature and art. He was intelligent, thoughtful, and he didn't seem intimidated by me at all. When I told him what I did for a living, he just nodded and asked if I enjoyed it. Not how much I made or what kind of car I drove. Did I enjoy it? Our first date was a picnic in Boston Common. He brought wine, cheese, and a book of French poetry. We watched the sunset and he read to me in French, then translated. It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for me. I was used to expensive restaurants and men trying to impress me with their connections. Gabriel impressed me with his mind and his heart. The relationship developed naturally over the next year. He introduced me to small jazz clubs, outdoor concerts, and hidden restaurants I'd never noticed despite living in Boston my whole life. We went to museums, took walks along the Charles River, and spent lazy Sundays reading together. He accepted expensive gifts gracefully when I wanted to spoil him. A nice watch for his birthday, a leather jacket for Christmas. He never seemed offended or insecure about our financial difference. There was just one thing that concerned me: his obsession with immigration. Gabriel was in the US on a work visa, and he worried constantly about it. We couldn't go to the airport without him getting anxious. Police cars made him nervous. He checked his documentation obsessively. At first, I thought it was normal immigrant anxiety. Now, looking back, I see it differently. 8 months ago, he proposed. We were at the same spot in Boston Common where we'd had our first date. He got down on one knee with a simple but beautiful ring and said he wanted to spend his life with me. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, that marriage would also solve his immigration worries. He'd finally feel secure in this country with me by his side. I said yes. I was in love, and I told myself the immigration comment was just honesty. He was being practical. That's what I liked about him, right? He was real. The moment I accepted his proposal, an idea formed in my mind. I wanted to surprise him on our wedding day by saying my vows in French. It would be romantic, meaningful, a gesture showing how much I cared about his culture and heritage. I'd been taking basic French lessons years ago but never got far. This time would be different. I found the best private French tutors in Boston and committed to an intensive program. 6 months of study, 3 times a week, plus daily exercises and immersion apps. I told Gabriel I was taking extra business courses, which wasn't entirely untrue since I did those too. But my real focus was French. The learning process was grueling. French grammar made my head spin. The pronunciation felt impossible at first. My tongue couldn't make the right shapes for the sounds. But I was determined. I've never been someone who gives up easily. You don't become CEO at 26 by quitting when things get hard. My main tutor was Louis, an American with French parents who'd lived in Paris for 15 years. He was patient, encouraging, and had a gift for making complex concepts understandable. He worked with me on everything from basic vocabulary to cultural nuances. We practiced conversations about daily life, literature, feelings. He wanted me to really understand the language, not just memorize phrases. After 6 months of intensive study, with 2 months still to go before the wedding, I was nearly fluent. I could watch French films without subtitles, read French novels, and hold complex conversations. I was so proud of myself. Gabriel had no idea. I imagined his face when I started speaking his language at the altar. I thought it would be the perfect beginning to our marriage. 1 week before the wedding, Gabriel told me his mother was finally coming to visit. Colette lived in a small town in rural Vermont after immigrating years ago. She and Gabriel were very close, but the distance meant I'd only met her once briefly over video chat. She seemed nice enough, if a bit reserved. Gabriel was excited to have her stay with us and meet me properly before the wedding. I prepared everything for her arrival. I had the guest room cleaned, bought her favorite wine that Gabriel mentioned, and planned meals around foods he said she loved. I wanted to make a good impression. She was going to be my mother-in-law. After all, family was important to Gabriel, and I wanted her to like me. The day before our wedding, Gabriel suggested bringing his mother to my house for dinner. Just the three of us, he said. A quiet family evening before all the wedding chaos. I thought it was a lovely idea. I prepared a beautiful meal, set the table with my good china, and bought flowers for the centerpiece. They arrived at 7. Colette was an elegant woman in her 60s with Gabriel's same dark eyes. She kissed my cheeks in greeting and complimented my home in accented English. Throughout dinner, she was charming. She asked about my work, my family, my interests. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. I started to relax, thinking this was going well. Then, about halfway through the meal, Colette turned to Gabriel and said something in rapid French. I kept smiling, cutting my chicken, acting like I didn't understand. But every single word hit me like a physical blow. Cette vache stupide est si naïve, she said, looking around my dining room with calculating eyes. This stupid cow is so naive. Gabriel laughed and responded in French, agreeing with her. My hands didn't shake. I kept smiling. I kept chewing. But inside, my world was ending. Colette continued speaking in French, clearly believing I couldn't understand a word. Elle sera parfaite pour toi, Gabriel. Une fois que tu auras la carte verte, tu pourras divorcer et garder une partie de sa fortune. She will be perfect for you, Gabriel. Once you get your green card, you can divorce her and keep part of her fortune. I reached for my wine glass with a steady hand and took a sip. My face showed nothing. Years of board meetings and hostile negotiations had taught me how to control my expressions. Meanwhile, my mind was racing, processing every implication of what I was hearing. Gabrielle responded enthusiastically in French. Je me suis bien débrouillée, n'est-ce pas? Elle paye pour tout, ne pose jamais de questions, et elle est tellement amoureuse qu'elle ne voit rien. I did well for myself, didn't I? She pays for everything, never asks questions, and she's so in love she sees nothing. Colette picked up her wine glass, examining the label with approval. Cette maison vaut combien? How much is this house worth? 1,5 million. Gabriel answered proudly. 1.5 million. His mother smiled. Après le divorce, tu pourras prendre au moins la moitié. Avec un bon avocat, peut-être plus. Les juges américains sont généreux avec les immigrants. After the divorce, you can take at least half. With a good lawyer, maybe more. American judges are generous with immigrants. I cut another piece of chicken, chewed, swallowed, smiled, asked in English if anyone wanted more wine. Colette accepted graciously. Gabriel kissed my cheek and called me mon amour while I refilled his mother's glass. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I heard everything they said in French. Every cruel observation about my naivety, every calculation about my assets, every joke about how easy I was to manipulate. Gabriel mentioned that I'd already put his name on my house deed as a wedding gift. I had done that last week, thinking it was romantic. Now I realized it was part of his plan all along. They discussed timing. Gabriel wanted to stay married for at least 2 years to avoid suspicion. Colette suggested 3 would be safer for immigration purposes. They talked about a woman named Isabel back in Lyon who was waiting for him. Apparently, Gabriel had a girlfriend in France who knew about this whole scheme. They laughed about how I'd bought him expensive gifts, paid for our vacation to California, and never questioned why he didn't contribute more financially. Elle pense que tu es juste un artiste pauvre avec des principes, Colette said mockingly. She thinks you're just a poor artist with principles. C'est exactement l'image que je voulais donner, Gabrielle replied. That's exactly the image I wanted to give. I served dessert, a chocolate tart from Gabriel's favorite bakery. I'd picked it up that morning, wanting everything to be perfect. They complimented it in English while continuing their French conversation about my stupidity. Finally, around 10 o'clock, Gabriel announced they should leave. He was staying at a hotel with his mother since tradition said we shouldn't see each other the night before the wedding. How romantic I had thought when he suggested it. Now I understood he probably just wanted privacy to celebrate his successful con. I walked them to the door. Gabriel pulled me close and kissed me tenderly. I can't wait to marry you tomorrow, he whispered in English. You've made me the happiest man alive. I smiled up at him. I can't wait either. Colette hugged me, her embrace warm and motherly. Welcome to our family, ma chérie, she said in her accented English. They stepped onto my front porch. Gabriel was reaching for his car keys. Colette was adjusting her scarf, and I made my decision. 2 years of my life, 8 months of planning. 6 months of secret French lessons, all leading to this moment. I spoke clearly in perfect French with the accent Louis had worked so hard to teach me. J'adore vous recevoir ce soir. Je parie que les services d'immigration aussi. I loved having you both this evening. I bet immigration services will too. The effect was instantaneous and beautiful. Gabriel froze mid-step. His keys fell from his hand and clattered on the porch. Colette's face went white, then red, then white again. They both turned to stare at me with identical expressions of horror. Quoi? Gabriel managed to choke out. What? I continued in French, enjoying every syllable. Did you really think I wouldn't understand? I've been fluent for months. Every word you said tonight I heard and understood perfectly. Gabriel tried to stammer a response. His face had gone from shocked to panicked to desperate in seconds. Sierra, please let me explain. It was just talk. We didn't mean, get off my property, I said in English now, my voice ice cold. Both of you, right now. Sierra, you have to listen. Gabriel stepped toward me, hands outstretched. I stepped back and put my hand on the door. If either of you tries to contact me, I'll call immigration and tell them every detail about your marriage fraud scheme. I'll show them the timeline of our relationship. I'll provide documentation of your visa status. Do you understand me? Colette grabbed Gabriel's arm, pulling him toward the car. She was speaking rapidly in French, telling him to shut up, that they needed to leave immediately. For once, Gabriel listened to her. I watched them practically run to his car. Gabriel fumbled with the keys, dropping them twice before successfully unlocking the doors. They sped out of my driveway like criminals fleeing a crime scene, which, I suppose, they were. I closed the door, locked it, and stood in my foyer surrounded by the remnants of the dinner party. The beautiful table setting, the flowers, the half-eaten chocolate tart. I'd spent hours preparing everything. I'd been so excited for this evening. My phone started buzzing immediately. Gabriel calling. I declined. He called again. Declined. A text appeared. Please, Sierra, this is all a misunderstanding. Let me explain. Don't do anything crazy. I blocked his number. Then I blocked Colette's number, though she hadn't tried to contact me yet. More texts came through before the block took effect. I love you. We can fix this. Don't call immigration, please, I'm begging you. Think about what you're doing. This will ruin my life. Good, I thought. That's exactly the point. I walked through my house, looking at everything with new eyes. The photos of us together, all lies. The books he'd given me, props in his performance. The corner where he'd proposed, a calculated manipulation. 2 years of my life given to a man who saw me as nothing more than a green card and a paycheck. Have you ever had the person you loved most reveal themselves as a complete stranger? I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of wine and my laptop, systematically canceling a wedding that was supposed to happen in less than 24 hours. The venue, I called and explained there was an emergency. They were surprisingly understanding, probably because I'd paid in full months ago. They offered to reschedule. I said no thank you, I'd just like to cancel completely. They agreed to refund half the deposit, which was more than I expected. The caterer. Another late-night call, another fabricated emergency, another partial refund. By now, I'd perfected my story. Family emergency, can't be helped, so sorry for the inconvenience. The photographer, the florist, the band, the cake maker, the rental company. One by one, I called them all. Some were annoyed about the short notice. Most were sympathetic. A few seemed to sense there was more to the story but didn't pry. By 4 in the morning, I'd successfully dismantled an entire wedding. The guest list was more complicated. I couldn't call 80 people at 4 a.m. Instead, I composed a brief email. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding of Sierra Mitchell and Gabriel Rousseau scheduled for tomorrow has been canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience. No gifts, please. I hit send and watched the message disappear into the night. Somewhere out there, my friends and family would wake up to this news. They'd be shocked, confused, worried. I'd deal with their questions later. Right now, I had more important things to do. At 5:30 a.m., I called the immigration tip line. A bored-sounding woman answered and took my information. I explained that I had reason to believe Gabriel Rousseau, a French national, had attempted to enter into a fraudulent marriage for the purpose of obtaining a green card. I provided his full name, date of birth, current address, visa information, and a detailed account of the previous night's conversation. Do you have any evidence of this scheme? The woman asked, suddenly more interested. I have text messages where he mentioned the immigration benefits of our marriage. I have witnesses who heard him discuss his visa concerns constantly. I have documentation showing the timeline of our relationship and his proposal. And I have my own testimony of the conversation I overheard in French. The woman took extensive notes. She explained that they'd open an investigation and might contact me for additional information. If Gabriel applied for any immigration benefits based on our relationship, the application would be flagged. If he tried to marry someone else quickly, that would raise red flags too. Essentially, I'd just put him on a watch list. "Thank you for reporting this," she said before we hung up. "Marriage fraud is a serious issue." I made coffee as the sun came up. My phone was buzzing constantly now. Gabriel had apparently tried calling from different numbers when he realized I'd blocked him. I blocked each new number as it appeared. He switched to emailing. The messages became increasingly desperate. "Sierra, please just talk to me. This is all a huge misunderstanding." My mother was joking, and I was playing along. "You know how French humor is. We didn't mean any of it. I love you. I've always loved you. Yes, I mentioned immigration, but that's not why I want to marry you. The green card is just a benefit, not the reason. You're making a terrible mistake. We can work through this. Every couple has problems. Don't throw away 2 years over one bad night. I'm coming to your house. We need to talk face to face. You can't just end everything like this." That last message made me call my security system company and add an alert. If Gabriel showed up, the police would be notified immediately. I wasn't taking any chances. Claire called at 7. "Sierra, what happened? I just got your email. Are you okay?" I told her everything. The French lessons, the dinner, the conversation I'd understood, the cancellation of the wedding. She listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Holy shit," she finally said. "Sierra, I'm so sorry. I can't even process how awful that is. Are you okay? Do you want me to come over?" "I'm okay," I said, and I actually meant it. I felt numb, yes, but also strangely calm. "I just need some time alone to process everything. If you need anything at all, call me, day or night. I mean it." We hung up, and I stared at my phone. More emails from Gabriel. I deleted them without reading. My mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I turned off my phone entirely. The next few hours were spent in a strange, productive haze. I went through every room of my house, removing traces of Gabriel. His clothes, his books, his toiletries. Everything went into boxes. I called a charity to pick them up that afternoon. His name was on my house deed, as he'd mentioned to his mother. I contacted my lawyer to start the process of removing it. "This will take a few weeks," my lawyer warned. "Since you're not married yet, it's simpler than a divorce. But there's still paperwork. Just get it done," I said, "whatever it costs." I changed my locks. I changed my security codes. I changed my garage door opener. I erased Gabriel from my life with methodical precision. Each item I boxed up, each lock I changed, each number I blocked, it felt like reclaiming something that had been taken from me. The charity came for the boxes at 2. The locksmith finished at 3. By evening, my house looked like Gabriel had never existed, except for the photos, which I couldn't bring myself to take down yet. Those could wait. I finally turned my phone back on at 8. 53 missed calls, 67 text messages, 42 emails. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I called Louis, my French tutor. "Sierra, I was worried when you missed your lesson today. Is everything all right?" I explained briefly. The wedding was canceled. The relationship was over. But I wanted to continue my French lessons. In fact, I wanted to intensify them. I'd come this far with the language, and I wasn't going to waste all that progress. "Of course," Louis said immediately. "We can absolutely continue. Actually, if you're serious about advancing your French, I have a suggestion. In 6 months, I'm leading a cultural immersion trip to France. Small group, 2 weeks, we tour Paris and the Loire Valley while practicing conversational French. It might be exactly what you need. A trip to France." The idea appealed to me in a way I didn't quite understand yet. Something to look forward to. Something to work toward that had nothing to do with Gabriel. "Tell me more," I said. The first week after canceling the wedding was brutal. Not because I missed Gabriel, which surprised me. I'd thought I'd be devastated. Instead, I was angry, furious at him for the deception, but even more furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. The signs had been there. His constant anxiety about immigration wasn't just normal concern, it was obsession. His perfect acceptance of my wealth wasn't enlightened attitude, it was calculated targeting. His romantic gestures, all the picnics and poetry, weren't genuine expressions of love. They were investments. Free ways to make me fall for him while planning to take everything I had. I threw myself into work with an intensity that worried even my most dedicated employees. I arrived at the office at 6 and stayed until 9. I restructured entire departments, launched new initiatives, and personally reviewed every major decision. My assistant started keeping a coffee pot brewing just for me. Boss, you need to take a break, she said gently after I snapped at someone during a meeting. Everyone's worried about you. I'm fine, I said automatically. You're not fine. You just canceled your wedding. It's okay to not be okay. I softened. She was right. I was pushing too hard, trying to outrun feelings I didn't want to face. I'll try to slow down, I promised, though we both knew I probably wouldn't. My French lessons became my therapy. 3 times a week, I met with Louis and practiced conversation. He never asked about the wedding or what had happened. He just taught me about subjunctive mood and regional dialects. The structure and challenge of learning gave me something to focus on besides my anger. During one lesson, about 2 weeks after the canceled wedding, Louis mentioned the France trip again. We have 8 spots and 5 are filled. If you're interested, you should decide soon. What exactly does the trip involve? I asked. We spend the first week in Paris. Museums, cafes, walking tours, all conducted in French. Then we take the train to the Loire Valley for the second week. Stay in a small chateau, visit vineyards, practice French with locals. It's full immersion. By the end, most people dream in French. It sounded perfect. Exactly the kind of escape I needed. Sign me up. Louis smiled. Excellent. I think you'll love it. And your French is already good enough that you'll get the most out of the experience. As I left that day's lesson, I realized something. I felt lighter. The France trip gave me something to anticipate. 6 months to prepare, to heal, to become fluent enough that I could navigate a foreign country with confidence. It was a goal that had nothing to do with Gabriel or relationships or marriage, just me, challenging myself, proving I could do something difficult. Gabriel tried a few more times to contact me through mutual friends. I shut them down immediately. I don't want to hear from him. I don't want messages from him. And if anyone gives him information about me, they're out of my life too. People quickly learned I was serious. The immigration investigation moved forward. An agent contacted me for an official interview. I met him at a federal building and gave my statement again, this time in detail with documentation. The agent was thorough and professional. This type of fraud is more common than people think, he told me. You did the right thing reporting it. He won't be able to use another American for the same scheme now. That gave me some satisfaction. At least I'd prevented Gabriel from hurting someone else the way he'd planned to hurt me. Claire finally convinced me to go out for dinner one evening about a month after the cancellation. We went to our favorite Italian place, and she ordered us both wine before I could protest. Okay, she said once we'd placed our food order. Real talk. How are you really doing? I considered the question seriously. Honestly, I'm angry more than sad. I'm angry that I was fooled. I'm angry that 2 years of my life were a lie. But I'm not heartbroken over losing Gabriel specifically. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Claire said. You're mourning what you thought you had, not what you actually had. Exactly. And I keep thinking about little things that seemed romantic but were actually red flags. Like how he never wanted to talk about his future plans beyond getting married. Or how he'd get weird if I asked about his past relationships. Or how he discouraged me from learning French now that I think about it. He discouraged you? Claire leaned forward, interested. Not directly. But whenever I mentioned taking French lessons early in our relationship, he'd say things like, English is the global language, or I need to practice my English anyway. I thought he was being practical. Now I realize he didn't want me understanding his private conversations. Claire shook her head in amazement. The level of calculation is scary. That's what bothers me most. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a weakness moment. This was a long-term con. He saw me as a mark from the beginning. Our food arrived, and we ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Claire asked, So what now? Are you swearing off men forever? I laughed. No, but I'm not looking either. Right now, I just want to focus on me, the company, my French, my trip to France. Maybe after that, I'll think about dating again. You're going to France? I told her about the immersion trip. Her face lit up with genuine excitement. Sierra, that's amazing. That sounds like exactly what you need. A complete change of scenery, new experiences, and you'll come back with a cool skill. That's what I'm hoping. As we finished dinner, Claire reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, you know. A lot of people would have fallen apart after what you went through, but you're handling it with so much grace. I don't feel very graceful, I admitted. Trust me, you are. You're taking a horrible situation and turning it into something positive. That takes real strength. Walking to my car after dinner, I realized Claire was right. I was handling this. Maybe not perfectly, but I was moving forward instead of staying stuck in anger and betrayal. The pain was still there, but it was becoming more manageable. Less sharp, more like a dull ache I could live with. The next few months fell into a routine. Work consumed my days. French lessons filled my evenings. I started exercising again, something I'd neglected during the wedding planning. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with while focused on Gabriel. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt my life into something that felt more authentically mine. Louis and I developed an easy friendship through our lessons. He was American, which made him easier to talk to than Gabriel had been. No visa concerns, no language barriers, no hidden agendas. Just a straightforward guy who loved French culture and teaching. We sometimes went overtime on our lessons, talking about French literature or debating the best cafes in Paris. "You've made remarkable progress," he told me during one session, about 4 months after the canceled wedding. "Your accent is nearly perfect, and your vocabulary has expanded significantly. You're going to thrive in France." "Thanks to you," I said sincerely. "You've been an incredible teacher. You've been an ideal student. You work hard, you practice, you don't give up when things get difficult. That's rare." Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. Was he flirting? No, probably just being encouraging. I pushed the thought away. I wasn't ready to read romance into innocent interactions. But over the next few weeks, I noticed small things. The way Louis made sure to save the comfortable chair for me. How he brought my favorite tea to lessons without me asking. The way his face lit up when I walked in. The extra time he spent making sure I understood cultural nuances. One evening, as I was packing up after a lesson, he said casually, "You know, I think you're going to love the Loire Valley portion of the trip. It's my favorite part of France." "You've been many times?" "My grandparents lived there. I spent every summer there as a kid. It's where I fell in love with the language and culture. There's something magical about that region." "Tell me more," I said, settling back into my chair. He did. He told me about the chateau, the vineyards, the small villages where time seemed to stand still. He described the food, the light, the way the Loire River looked at sunset. His passion was infectious. By the time he finished, I was even more excited about the trip. 2 more months, he said, checking his calendar. "You'll be there before you know it." As I drove home that night, I realized I was smiling, not because of Gabriel being gone, but because I was genuinely looking forward to something. The France trip represented a new chapter, a chance to use the French I'd learned for its original purpose, not to surprise a fiancé, but to experience a culture I'd come to love through studying its language. The 5th month after the canceled wedding brought an unexpected development. Gabriel tried one last time to contact me, but not directly. My lawyer called to inform me that Gabriel's attorney had sent a letter requesting a meeting to discuss settlement of shared assets. "What shared assets?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "He's claiming that because his name was on your house deed, albeit briefly, he's entitled to compensation for his interest in the property. It's a ridiculous claim legally, but his lawyer is trying. So he's moved from marriage fraud to extortion." Essentially, yes, though they're framing it as a legitimate property dispute. I felt that old anger flare up again. Even now, months later, Gabriel was still trying to take from me. Tell his lawyer to go to hell. Politely, legally, but firmly. My lawyer chuckled. "I'll draft an appropriate response. Don't worry. He has no case. This is just a desperate attempt to get something out of you." The letter made me realize I hadn't fully processed my anger. I was functioning, yes. Working, learning French, making plans. But underneath, I was still furious about the betrayal. I decided to talk to someone professional about it. The therapist I found specialized in trauma from betrayal and deception. Dr. Chen was a calm, thoughtful woman who let me vent for most of our first session without interruption. When I finally ran out of steam, she asked a simple question. "What did this experience teach you about yourself?" I thought about it. That I'm stronger than I realized. I didn't fall apart. I took action. That's true. What else? That I need to trust my instincts better. Looking back, I had doubts about Gabriel at times, small things that bothered me, but I ignored them because I wanted the relationship to work. That's very insightful. What will you do differently in the future? Pay attention to red flags. Ask questions. Not ignore my gut feelings just because I want something to be true. Over the next few therapy sessions, I worked through the layers of emotion I'd been avoiding. The embarrassment of being fooled. The fear that I couldn't trust my judgment anymore. The sadness over losing what I thought was real love. Dr. Chen helped me understand that Gabriel's deception said everything about him and nothing about my worth. "You were vulnerable and honest," she told me. "He exploited that. Those are his character flaws, not yours." With 1 month until the France trip, my French lessons with Louis took on a different quality. We'd moved beyond grammar and vocabulary into deeper cultural discussions. We talked about French philosophy, cinema, politics. Louis challenged me to think in French, not just translate from English. During one lesson, he brought a French film for us to watch together. "We'll pause periodically and discuss what's happening," he explained. It'll help with your comprehension and colloquial expressions. The film was a romantic drama set in Paris. Beautiful cinematography, complex characters, sophisticated dialogue. About halfway through, there was a scene where the main character discovered her partner had been lying to her. The betrayal was raw and real. I felt my throat tighten. Louis paused the film. You okay? Yeah, just hits close to home, I guess. He nodded, understanding without needing details. We can watch something else if you prefer. No, it's fine. Actually, it's good. Cathartic, maybe. We continued watching. By the end, the main character had rebuilt her life and found unexpected happiness in a new direction. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real one. Growth and healing rather than revenge or despair. What did you think? Louis asked as the credits rolled. I think she made the right choices. She didn't let the betrayal define her future. Agreed. Though it must have been incredibly difficult. The hardest things usually are. There was a moment of comfortable silence. Then Louis said, You know, I really admire how you've handled everything. You could have given up on French after what happened, but you didn't. You turned something painful into something meaningful. French wasn't the problem, I said quietly. Gabriel was. True. But still, it would have been understandable to want to distance yourself from anything connected to him. French isn't connected to him anymore. It's mine now. Something I did for myself. Louis smiled. That's a healthy perspective. As our lesson ended, he handed me an information packet about the France trip. Final details. We leave in 4 weeks. I think you're going to have an amazing time. I looked at the itinerary with growing excitement. Paris museums, caf conversations, a cooking class in French, then the Loire Valley with Siege-Tow tours, wine tastings, and stays in a converted medieval manor. It looked like a dream. Thank you, I said sincerely, for everything. The lessons, the patience, the encouragement. You've been incredible. It's been my pleasure. You're one of the best students I've ever had. Walking to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine happiness. Not the forced positivity I'd been maintaining, but real contentment. I was healing, moving forward, building something new. The last few weeks before the trip flew by in a flurry of preparation. I bought appropriate clothes, got travel insurance, made arrangements at work for my absence. My assistant was excited for me. You deserve this vacation, she said firmly. No checking emails while you're gone. We'll handle everything. Claire threw me a small going-away party. Just a few close friends, wine, and French food. Everyone toasted to new adventures and fresh starts. One friend asked if I was nervous about traveling to Gabriel's home country. France isn't his, I said simply. It's France's. And now it's mine too. The night before departure, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but excitement. I was actually doing this. Flying to France, immersing myself in the language and culture, challenging myself in new ways. A year ago, I'd been planning a wedding to a man who didn't love me. Now I was planning an adventure that was entirely my own. I thought about Gabriel briefly, wondered where he was, what he was doing, but the thoughts held no power anymore. He was just a person I used to know, someone who'd taught me painful but valuable lessons. I didn't wish him well, but I didn't wish him harm either. I just didn't care. My phone buzzed with a text from Louis. Ready for tomorrow? Don't forget your comfortable walking shoes. We'll be covering a lot of ground in Paris. I smiled and texted back. Ready. See you at the airport. The flight to Paris was long but uneventful. I sat next to an older woman from our tour group named Patricia, who taught English at a community college. We chatted in a mix of English and French, laughing at our mistakes and helping each other with pronunciation. What brought you to French? She asked as we flew over the Atlantic. It's a long story, I said, but the short version is I wanted to challenge myself and learn something completely new. Good for you. I've been studying for 5 years and still feel like a beginner sometimes. Louis says that feeling never completely goes away. Even native speakers learn new things. Louis is a wonderful teacher, isn't he? So patient and enthusiastic. I agreed, and we spent the rest of the flight practicing conversational French about travel, food, and our expectations for the trip. We landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport in the early morning. Despite the jet lag, I felt energized as we collected our luggage and met the rest of the group. There were 8 of us total. Me, Patricia, a retired couple from Oregon, 2 sisters from Texas, and a young man named Marcus who worked in international business. Louis greeted us with genuine warmth, speaking in French from the first moment. Bienvenue Paris, welcome to Paris. For the next 2 weeks, we'll be speaking primarily French. Don't worry about making mistakes. That's how we learn. The hotel was in the Marais district, a charming neighborhood with narrow streets and historic buildings. My room was small but perfect, with a window overlooking a courtyard. I showered, changed, and met the group for our first activity, a walking tour of the neighborhood conducted entirely in French. Louis was in his element. He pointed out architectural details, told stories about the area's history, and encouraged us to interact with shopkeepers and cafe owners. My French held up beautifully. I ordered a coffee without hesitation, asked for directions in a bookstore, and chatted with an elderly man feeding pigeons in a small park. "Your accent is remarkable," Louis said during a break. "People might actually think you're French." "That's the nicest compliment you could give me." "It's well earned. You've worked incredibly hard." That afternoon, we visited the Louvre. Louis had arranged a private tour in French focusing on lesser-known works. I was overwhelmed by the beauty, the history, the weight of centuries of art surrounding us. Standing in front of a Delacroix painting, I felt tears prick my eyes. Not from sadness, but from joy. I was here, in Paris, understanding and appreciating all of it in a language I'd taught myself. The first week passed in a wonderful blur. We visited museums and monuments, took a boat cruise on the Seine, attended a play at a small theater, and ate at restaurants where I confidently navigated menus and conversations with waiters. Every evening, our group gathered for dinner and discussed the day's experiences in French. I was surprised by how comfortable I felt, how natural the language was becoming. Louis and I often ended up walking together between locations. He'd point out details I might miss, suggest cafes to try on my own time, and share personal anecdotes about his experiences in France. He was easy to talk to, intelligent, and genuinely interested in my thoughts on everything from architecture to politics. One evening, after the group had dispersed following dinner, Louis asked if I wanted to walk along the Seine. "There's a beautiful view of Notre Dame I'd like to show you," he said. We walked in comfortable silence, the city glowing around us. When we reached his viewpoint, I understood why he'd wanted to share it. Notre Dame rose before us, illuminated and majestic despite its ongoing restoration. The river reflected the lights, creating a magical scene. "Thank you for this," I said softly. "The whole trip, but especially moments like this. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You deserve to experience Paris properly." Something in his tone made me turn to look at him. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Affection? Interest? Before I could analyze it further, he spoke. "Sierra, I should probably tell you something. I've enjoyed our lessons over the past months immensely, and not just as a teacher. I find myself looking forward to seeing you in a way that's probably not entirely professional." My heart skipped. "Louis, I know the timing might not be right," he continued quickly. "You've been through a difficult experience, and you might not be interested in anything romantic. But I wanted to be honest. I like you, as more than a student." I took a breath, processing his words. Did I feel the same way? Looking at him standing there, vulnerable and honest, I realized I might. The comfort I felt with him, the joy in our conversations, the excitement when I saw him, it was more than just teacher and student. "I like you too," I admitted. I wasn't sure if I was reading things correctly or projecting. He smiled, relieved. "So I haven't completely misread the situation?" "No, you haven't. But you're right about the timing. I'm still processing everything that happened with Gabriel. I don't want to rush into something new before I'm ready." "I understand. I'm not asking for anything immediate. I just wanted you to know how I feel. And that when you are ready, if you're interested, I'd love to explore this further. I appreciate your honesty and your patience." We stood there for a moment, the awkwardness of the confession fading into something warmer. Then Louis said, "Should we head back? We have an early start tomorrow." As we walked to the hotel, I felt something shift inside me. Not love, not yet, but possibility, hope, the beginning of something that might, with time, become meaningful. The second week of the trip took us to the Loire Valley. We traveled by train, watching the landscape change from urban to rural, cities giving way to vineyards and fields. The chateau where we'd be staying appeared like something from a fairy tale. Honey-colored stone, turrets, surrounded by gardens. "This is incredible," Patricia breathed as we pulled up the drive. "Wait until you see inside," Louis promised. He wasn't exaggerating. The chateau had been converted into a small hotel, but retained all its historical charm. My room had a four-poster bed, antique furniture, and windows overlooking rose gardens. I felt like I'd stepped into another century. That evening, Louis organized a wine tasting in the chateau's cellar. A local vintner taught us about Loire Valley wines in French, and I surprised myself by understanding nearly everything. The wines were excellent, the company was warm, and I felt more relaxed than I had in months. As the week progressed, Louis and I continued to connect. We'd have coffee together in the mornings before the group activities, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his childhood, split between America and France, never quite feeling fully part of either culture. I shared my experiences running the company, the challenges of being young and female in a male-dominated industry. "You're remarkably strong," he said one morning as we sat in the Chateau's garden. "What you've built, what you've overcome, it's impressive. I don't always feel strong. Sometimes I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's what strength is, though. Continuing, even when it's hard." On our last night in France, the group had a farewell dinner at a local restaurant. We toasted to new friendships, improved French, and unforgettable experiences. I looked around the table at people who'd been strangers 2 weeks ago and now felt like friends. I looked at Louis, who'd been my teacher and was becoming something more. After dinner, Louis and I walked through the small village near the Chateau. The streets were quiet, lit by old-fashioned lanterns. We found a bench near a fountain and sat, neither of us quite ready for the evening to end. "This trip has been transformative," I said quietly. "I came here thinking I was just learning French and seeing France, but it's been so much more than that." "How so?" "I've rediscovered myself. The person I was before Gabriel, but better, stronger, more confident, more open to possibility." Louis reached for my hand, his touch gentle. "I'm glad. You deserve all the good things coming your way." I looked at our joined hands, then up at his face. "When we get back home, I'd like to explore this. Us. If you're still interested." "I'm definitely still interested. I can't promise it'll be easy. I'm still healing, still figuring things out, but I'd like to try. That's all I'm asking for. A chance." He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't want to. Our kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the passionate intensity I'd had with Gabriel. This was different, honest, real, a beginning rather than a performance. When we pulled apart, I was smiling. "We should probably head back." "Probably," he agreed, but neither of us moved. We sat there for a while longer, holding hands, talking quietly about the future, about continuing my French studies, about his upcoming teaching schedule, about maybe taking another trip to France together someday. Plans built on genuine interest and authentic connection rather than hidden agendas. Flying home the next day, I looked out the window at the clouds and reflected on the past 6 months. I'd gone from planning a fraudulent wedding to discovering a meaningful connection, from being betrayed to being genuinely happy, from feeling like Gabriel's mark to feeling like my own person. I thought about Gabriel briefly and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no regret. He was just someone who'd been in my life and taught me what I didn't want. What I did want was sitting 3 rows ahead of me on the plane, probably reviewing his teaching materials for the upcoming semester. Louis turned around and caught my eye, smiling. I smiled back, and in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. Better than okay. I was going to thrive. Back in Boston, reality hit faster than jet lag. I had a company to run, emails to answer, and apparently a romantic situation to navigate. Fun times. Louis and I agreed to take things slow, which in retrospect sounds like what every emotionally damaged person says right before they absolutely do not take things slow. But we genuinely tried. Our first official date was coffee at a cafe near my office. Nothing fancy, just conversation without the excuse of French lessons between us. "So," I said, stirring my latte, "we should probably discuss the elephant in the room." "Which elephant?" "There are several." I appreciated that he could joke. "The fact that 6 months ago I was engaged to a con artist, and now I'm sitting here with you. Some people might call that a rebound." Louis considered this seriously. "Are you worried that's what this is?" "Honestly, a little. I don't want to hurt you by using you to get over Gabriel. And I don't want to fool myself into thinking I'm ready when I'm not. Those are fair concerns." He took a sip of his espresso. "Here's what I think. We're both adults. We both know the situation. If we go into this with open communication and realistic expectations, we can handle whatever comes." Very rational. I'm a very rational person, clearly. Most irrational people declare their feelings while standing by the Seine. He laughed. "Fair point. That was uncharacteristically impulsive for me." We decided on ground rules. Honesty above all else. No rushing into anything serious. Regular check-ins about how we were feeling. And most importantly, if either of us felt it wasn't working, we'd say so directly rather than letting things drag on. This is possibly the most mature approach to dating I've ever attempted, I admitted. Same. Usually I just panic and hope for the best. Over the next few weeks, we fell into an easy pattern. Dinner once or twice a week, sometimes at restaurants, sometimes at my place where I'd cook. We continued French conversation practice because why waste perfectly good bilingual skills? We went to movies, art galleries, and once to a horrible experimental theater production that we both hated but pretended to appreciate until we got to the parking lot and burst out laughing. "That was awful," Louis said, still chuckling. "Terrible. Why did we sit through the whole thing?" I thought you were enjoying it. I thought you were enjoying it. We laughed until we cried. And somewhere in that parking lot, I realized I was genuinely happy. Not pretending, not forcing it, just authentically enjoying myself with someone who made me laugh. Work continued to be intense. We were launching a new product line, and I was personally overseeing every detail. My assistant started calling me the hurricane because I'd sweep through departments, reorganize everything, and leave people energized but slightly dizzy. You're in your element, Claire observed during one of our lunch dates. I haven't seen you this focused and alive in years. It feels good to be building something, creating value, making decisions that matter. How are things with Louis? I smiled. Good, really good. He's patient, funny, and completely drama-free. It's almost suspicious how normal and healthy this relationship is. You deserve normal and healthy. I'm not sure I know how to do normal and healthy. My entire romantic history has been either boring or catastrophic. Then learn. You learned French in 6 months. You can learn healthy relationships. She had a point. I'd approached French with dedication and systematic practice. Maybe I could approach this relationship the same way. Learn the patterns, practice the skills, gradually improve. Though comparing romance to language learning probably said something about my emotional availability that Dr. Chen would want to discuss. Speaking of Dr. Chen, therapy continued to be helpful. We'd shifted from processing the Gabriel betrayal to examining my broader patterns with trust and vulnerability. You've built impressive walls, she observed during one session. Very effective for protecting yourself. But walls that keep pain out also keep connection out. You're going to need to risk lowering them sometimes. With Louis? With anyone you want true intimacy with. Partners, friends, even family eventually. The family comments stung because I'd been avoiding thinking about them. My mother had tried calling several times after the canceled wedding. I'd sent brief texts assuring her I was fine, but hadn't actually talked to her. Eventually, she'd stopped trying. About 2 months after returning from France, Louis suggested meeting his parents. No pressure, he said quickly. But they're having a family dinner next weekend, and I'd love for you to come if you're comfortable. Meeting the parents. The classic relationship milestone. With Gabriel, I'd never met his father, who'd apparently died years ago, and I'd only met Colette that one disastrous time. This felt significant. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. His parents lived in a comfortable house in the suburbs. His mother, Rebecca, taught literature at a local college. His father, James, was a retired engineer who now built furniture as a hobby. They welcomed me warmly, and I immediately felt at ease. Louis has told us so much about you, Rebecca said, leading me to the living room. Your dedication to learning French is impressive. Your son is an excellent teacher. He's passionate about language. Always has been. Dinner was relaxed and full of laughter. James told terrible dad jokes. Rebecca shared embarrassing stories about Louis' childhood. Louis' younger sister, Emma, grilled me about running a tech company. It was everything a family dinner should be. Warm, genuine, accepting. Driving home, Louis asked, "So what did you think?" "I think your family is wonderful. Your mom is brilliant, your dad is hilarious, and your sister is going to be a formidable lawyer someday. They loved you too. My mom texted me while you were in the bathroom. She said, and I quote, 'Don't mess this up.' I laughed. No pressure. None at all. What do you think happens when you finally meet a partner's normal, loving family after being engaged to someone whose mother literally plotted to rob you? 3 months into dating Louis, I hit an unexpected wall. Everything was going well, which was exactly the problem. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Louis to reveal some hidden agenda or secret flaw. The fact that he seemed genuinely good made me suspicious. "I think I'm self-sabotaging," I told Dr. Chen during our session. "Tell me more." "Louis is kind, honest, supportive. We have fun together. He's introduced me to his family. Everything is healthy and normal. And I keep looking for problems that don't exist." "What kind of problems?" "I don't know. Secret gambling addiction? Second family in another state? Moderate to severe personality disorder?" I paused. "I sound insane. You sound like someone whose trust was severely violated. Your instinct is to protect yourself by assuming the worst. So how do I stop?" "You practice trusting him in small ways. Pay attention to whether his actions match his words. Notice when he's consistent and reliable. Gradually, your nervous system will understand that he's safe." I tried to follow her advice. I noticed when Louis showed up exactly when he said he would. When he listened to my work stress without trying to fix everything. When he suggested we slow down physically because he wanted to make sure I was truly ready. Small, consistent actions that proved his character. Meanwhile, work provided a welcome distraction from my emotional complications. We were preparing for a major product launch, and I'd been invited to speak at a tech conference about leadership and innovation. Public speaking wasn't my favorite, but it was part of the job. Louis helped me practice my presentation. "You're too stiff," he observed after my third run-through. "You're brilliant, but you sound like you're reading from a corporate manual." "I am reading from a corporate manual. I wrote it. Tell stories instead. Make it personal. People connect with authenticity." I revised the presentation, including anecdotes about taking over the company young, facing skepticism, and learning to trust my instincts. The conference went better than expected. People actually listened, asked thoughtful questions, and several approached me afterward to continue the conversation. One woman, probably in her 50s, shook my hand firmly. "Thank you for that. My daughter is starting her own company, and she needed to hear that it's possible, that she can do it." Moments like that reminded me why I loved my work. It wasn't just about profit margins and market share. It was about building something meaningful and maybe inspiring others along the way. That evening, Louis took me to dinner to celebrate. "You were amazing today," he said, raising his glass. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks, though I'm pretty sure I rambled during the Q&A section. You were thoughtful and engaging. Stop being so hard on yourself. It's kind of my brand at this point." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Sierra, I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. The reveal, the confession, the moment everything falls apart. "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I know it's only been a few months, and I'm not expecting you to say it back, but I wanted you to know." Oh, that was not what I'd expected. "Louis, you don't have to respond right now," he interrupted gently. "I just needed to be honest about how I feel." I looked at this man who'd taught me French, taken me to France, introduced me to his family, and supported my healing without asking for anything in return. Did I love him? Maybe, probably, but saying it felt terrifying in a way that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with my own fear. "Thank you for telling me," I said carefully. "I care about you deeply. I'm just not quite ready to use the L word yet. Too much baggage." "I understand, and I'll wait." The fact that he could say that and mean it made me care about him even more. Gabriel would have pushed, manipulated, or used my hesitation against me. Louis just accepted where I was and chose to stay anyway. A week later, Claire invited me to her engagement party. She'd been dating Marcus for 2 years, and I was genuinely happy for them. The party was at a nice restaurant, filled with their friends and family. I brought Louis as my +1, and he charmed everyone he met. "Your boyfriend is delightful," Claire said, pulling me aside. "Hold on to this one. That's the plan. Are you happy?" I considered the question. Yes, cautiously, guardedly, but genuinely happy. That's progress. The party was winding down when I saw him, Gabriel, standing near the bar, apparently friends with someone in Marcus's family. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment I froze. He looked different. Older, tired, less confident. He was alone, no date beside him. As I watched, he downed his drink quickly and ordered another. He looked, frankly, like garbage. And wow, did that feel good to observe. "Is that him?" Louis asked quietly, following my gaze. "Yes. Do you want to leave?" "No." I straightened my shoulders. "I have as much right to be here as he does. More, actually, since these are my friends." Gabriel noticed us watching and started walking over. Oh, good, I thought. A confrontation at my best friend's engagement party. Exactly what I wanted. "Sierra," he said, stopping a few feet away. "I didn't expect to see you here." Funny, I could say the same. My voice was cool, detached. "Are you friends with Marcus?" "His cousin. We met at a soccer league." Awkward silence. Louis stood close beside me, supportive but not possessive. Gabriel's eyes flicked between us, clearly trying to figure out our relationship. "You look well," Gabriel finally said. "I am well." I tried to reach out, to apologize, but you blocked me everywhere. "Yes, I did, because I didn't want to hear from you." He flinched. "I know I messed up. What my mother and I said that night, it wasn't... we were just talking. We didn't mean it the way it sounded." "You absolutely meant it exactly the way it sounded. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise." "Sierra, please. I really did care about you. The immigration thing was just a bonus, not the whole reason." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "Gabriel, you literally called me a stupid cow. Your mother described me as naive and gullible. You planned our divorce before our wedding, and now you want me to believe you cared? I made mistakes. You made choices. Calculated, deliberate choices. There's a difference." Louis spoke for the first time. "I think Sierra has made her feelings clear. Maybe you should move along." Gabriel looked at Louis with obvious dislike. "And you are?" "Someone who actually respects her." The simple statement hit harder than any dramatic declaration could have. Gabriel's face reddened, but he had no comeback. After a tense moment, he walked away, returning to the bar and his solitary drinking. You okay? Louis asked. Yeah. Actually, I feel great. And I did. Seeing Gabriel again, diminished and alone, had been oddly freeing. He had no power over me anymore. Just a guy I used to know who'd made terrible choices and now lived with the consequences. We stayed at the party another hour, dancing and celebrating with Claire and Marcus. By the time we left, I'd almost forgotten Gabriel was there. Almost, but not quite. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. And I was definitely living well. 4 months into our relationship, Louis asked if I wanted to take a trip together. Just the two of us. No tour groups or structured activities. A real vacation. Where were you thinking? I asked. California. I've always wanted to see Big Sur, and there are some beautiful coastal towns we could explore. That sounds perfect. We planned the trip for the following month, booking a rental house overlooking the ocean. I was excited, but also nervous. A week together would be intimate in ways we hadn't yet experienced. No distractions, no separate homes to retreat to. Just us. The week before the trip, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sierra, honey, I know you've been avoiding me, but I'm your mother and I'm worried about you. I'm fine, Mom. Are you? Because you canceled your wedding, blocked everyone associated with Gabriel, and from what I hear, you're dating someone new already. That doesn't sound fine. I took a deep breath. Trying to stay calm. Gabriel was using me for a green card and my money. I overheard him and his mother discussing their plan. That's why I canceled the wedding. Silent. Then, oh my God, Sierra. I had no idea. I didn't tell anyone the details. It was humiliating enough without broadcasting it. Honey, that's not your fault. He deceived you. You were a victim. I wasn't a victim, Mom. I was someone who made a mistake and then corrected it. There's a difference. We talked for another 20 minutes. She asked about Louis, about work, about my life. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. Maybe Dr. Chen was right about gradually letting people back in. The California trip exceeded all expectations. The rental house was beautiful, perched on a cliff with panoramic ocean views. We spent days hiking, exploring small towns, eating at local restaurants, and talking about everything. Louis told me about his divorce in his late 20s, how it had made him cautious about relationships. I shared more details about my childhood, about taking over the company, about the pressure I'd always felt to prove myself. One evening, we were sitting on the deck watching the sunset. Louis had his arm around me, and I felt completely at peace. I could get used to this, I said. Same, though I'm not sure I could afford a house with this view. We could split it. If we ever decided to do something crazy like move in together? He looked at me with surprise. Are you saying you'd want to? Eventually, maybe. I don't know. I laughed at my own uncertainty. I'm not good at this. The whole being vulnerable and planning a future thing. You're better at it than you think. He kissed the top of my head. And for the record, eventually and maybe are good enough for me. We have time. That night, things between us shifted to a new level of intimacy. It felt right in a way nothing had with Gabriel. This was built on trust and genuine affection rather than performance and manipulation. Afterward, lying in Louis' arms, I felt something click into place. A sense of rightness I hadn't known I was missing. I love you, I said quietly into the darkness. Louis pulled me closer. I love you too. Simple words, but they meant everything. The rest of the trip was blissful. We were in that honeymoon phase where everything felt magical. But even the difficult moments, like when we got lost hiking and I got cranky from hunger, felt manageable because we could laugh about them later. Flying home, I realized I'd reached a milestone I hadn't been sure was possible. I trusted Louis completely. Not blindly, not naively, but with clear eyes and an open heart. He'd proven himself through hundreds of small, consistent actions, and I'd learned to accept that proof rather than constantly looking for evidence of betrayal. Back in Boston, we fell into a routine that felt like a real relationship. He stayed at my place several nights a week. We grocery shopped together, cooked together, fell asleep watching movies together. We met each other's friends. We made plans for holidays and future trips. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely wonderful. 6 months after we started dating, Louis's lease was up on his apartment. I could renew, he said casually over breakfast, or I could not renew. I looked at him across my kitchen table. This man who'd become essential to my daily happiness. What would you do if you didn't renew? I was hoping I could move in here with you if you're ready. Was I ready? A year ago, I'd been planning to marry a con artist. 6 months ago, I'd been healing from that betrayal. Now I was being offered something real with someone genuine. It should have terrified me. Instead, it felt exactly right. I'm ready, I said. Louis moved in 3 weeks later. We created space for his things, rearranged furniture, and figured out how to navigate sharing a bathroom. There were adjustments, certainly. He was messier than me. I was more particular about kitchen organization, but we worked through each small conflict with communication and compromise. Claire was thrilled. "You're practically glowing," she said during one of our lunches. "This is what healthy relationships look like." It's weird. I keep expecting something to go wrong. Maybe nothing will go wrong. Maybe you just found a good one. Maybe. I smiled. Yeah, maybe I did. Work continued to thrive. The product launch had been successful and we were expanding into new markets. I hired 2 excellent managers to oversee operations, which freed me up to focus on big picture strategy. For the first time, I felt like I had balance between my career and personal life. One evening, about 7 months into living together, Louis and I were cooking dinner when he said, "I have something to tell you." Those words still triggered my anxiety, and he must have seen it on my face because he quickly added, "It's good news. I promise." "Okay, what is it?" "I've been offered a position developing a new French curriculum for a private school. It's a significant step up, better pay, and it would involve some travel to France for research and teacher training." "Louis, that's amazing. Congratulations." "The thing is, the travel would be several weeks at a time. I wanted to make sure you'd be okay with that before I accepted." I thought about it. A year ago, the idea of my partner traveling without me would have triggered all my abandonment issues. Now, I felt confident enough in our relationship to handle his absence. "I think it's a great opportunity. You should absolutely take it." "You're sure?" "Completely sure. We'll make it work." He pulled me into a hug. "Thank you for understanding, and for supporting my career the way I try to support yours." That was the thing about healthy relationships I was learning. They were built on mutual support and trust, not control and manipulation. Gabriel had needed me dependent and unquestioning. Louis wanted me strong and independent. The difference was everything. 1 year after canceling my wedding to Gabriel, I threw myself a party. Not a pity party, an actual celebration. Claire helped me organize it, and we invited all the friends who'd supported me through the aftermath. "What are we celebrating?" someone asked as we raised glasses. "Survival, growth, and really good life choices," I answered. Everyone laughed and toasted. Louis stood beside me, his arm around my waist, and I felt genuinely grateful for how far I'd come, from devastated and betrayed to happy and whole. It had been a hell of a journey. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Louis and I sat on my deck with wine and looked at the stars. "Can I ask you something?" Louis said. "Always. Do you ever regret it? The whole situation with Gabriel, I mean. If it hadn't happened, we might never have met." I considered this. I regret the pain and the time wasted, but I don't regret the lessons I learned, and I definitely don't regret ending up here, with you. Good answer. What about you? Any regrets about getting involved with someone who came with so much baggage? None. Your baggage made you who you are. I love who you are. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Louis said, "I have something for you. An early anniversary gift." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a brochure for an advanced French immersion program in Provence. 6 weeks, intensive study, intensive, for people already fluent who wanted to reach native-level proficiency. "I know it's a big commitment," Louis said, "but you're already so good, and I think you'd love it. Plus, I'd be there for the last 2 weeks. My school training overlaps with your program." I looked at the brochure, then at Louis. Then, 6 weeks in Provence. Continuing the journey I'd started with such different intentions, completing something that had begun as a surprise for a man who didn't deserve it, and transforming it into something purely mine. "I love it," I said. "I'm absolutely doing this." We spent the next few weeks planning. I arranged coverage at work, delegating responsibilities to my capable team. I renewed my passport, bought appropriate clothes, and contacted the program to enroll. The more I planned, the more excited I became. 2 weeks before my departure, something unexpected happened. Gabriel reached out through LinkedIn, of all places. A professional message requesting to connect. I showed Louis. "What do you think he wants?" Louis asked. "No idea. And I don't particularly care." I declined the request without responding, but Gabriel didn't give up. A few days later, he sent me an email through my company website. It was long, rambling, and full of apologies. He claimed he'd been in therapy, working on himself, understanding his mistakes. He said he'd never forgiven himself for what he'd done. He asked if we could talk just once for closure. I read it twice, trying to figure out his angle. With Gabriel, there was always an angle. "What are you going to do?" Louis asked after I showed him the email. "I'm going to ignore it. I don't owe him closure or forgiveness or anything else." Fair enough. But the email bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Not because I had any residual feelings for Gabriel, but because it reminded me how thoroughly he'd deceived me, How I'd loved someone who'd never really existed. That version of Gabriel, the charming book-loving romantic, had been a character he'd played. Dr. Chen helped me process these feelings in our next session. Closure is something you give yourself, she said. You don't need his participation. I know, but part of me wants to respond, to tell him exactly how much damage he caused and how little I care about his redemption arc. Would that actually make you feel better? I thought about it. Probably not. It would just give him more of my energy and time, neither of which he deserves. Then you have your answer. I deleted the email without responding. If Gabriel wanted closure, he could find it in therapy. I'd already moved on. The week before leaving for Provence, I had lunch with my mother. We'd been gradually rebuilding our relationship, and while it wasn't perfect, it was better than it had been. I'm proud of you, she said over salad. How you handled everything with Gabriel. How you've built your career. How happy you seem now. Thanks, Mom. This Louis seems good for you. When do I get to meet him properly? How about dinner next week before I leave? You can interrogate him to your heart's content, she laughed. I promised to be on my best behavior. The dinner went well. Louis charmed my mother effortlessly, answering her questions about his work, his family, and his intentions toward me without seeming defensive or irritated. By the end of the evening, my mother pulled me aside and said, "This one's a keeper." I know. Don't let him go. I don't plan to. Flying to Provence felt like completing a circle. I'd studied French to surprise a man who'd planned to betray me. Now I was using that same language to enrich my own life, independent of any relationship. The journey had transformed from an act of love into an act of self-development. The program was intense and wonderful. I was surrounded by people who shared my passion for the language and culture. We spent mornings in rigorous classes, afternoons practicing with native speakers, and evenings exploring the region. My French improved dramatically, picking up nuances and idioms I'd missed before. Louis arrived for the last 2 weeks, and we traveled together on weekends while I continued my studies during the week. We visited lavender fields, Roman ruins, and tiny villages where time seemed to have stopped. We ate incredible food, drank local wine, and fell even more in love. One evening, we were having dinner at an outdoor restaurant in a hilltop village. The view was spectacular, the food was perfect, and Louis was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked, smiling. "I'm just happy. Right here. Right now, I'm completely happy." "Me too." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Sierra, I know this might seem fast, and you can absolutely say no, but I need to ask you something." My heart started racing. Was he going to propose? We'd only been together a year. That felt too soon after everything with Gabriel. "Will you marry me?" Oh God. He was proposing? In France? At a romantic restaurant? While I was having a mild panic attack? Louis? Wait, let me finish. I know you might not be ready. I know marriage is complicated for you after Gabriel. But I love you, and I want to build a life with you. If you need time, I'll wait. If you want a long engagement, that's fine. I just need you to know that I'm serious about us, about our future. I looked at this man who'd been patient with my healing, supportive of my goals, and genuine in every interaction. Did I want to marry him? The thought didn't fill me with dread or anxiety. Instead, I felt ready. "Yes," I said. "Yes, you need time," or "Yes, you'll marry me." "Yes, I'll marry you." His face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. He came around the table and kissed me while the other diners applauded. He slipped a simple, beautiful ring on my finger, and I felt tears streaming down my face. Happy tears this time. "I can't believe you're proposing in France," I said, laughing and crying simultaneously. I thought it was fitting. This is where we first told each other I love you, where we became truly us. He was right. France had become our place, not mine and Gabriel's. Another thing I'd reclaimed and transformed. We spent the rest of the evening making plans. A small wedding, just close friends and family. Maybe next year. No rush. Probably in Boston, though Provence would always hold a special place in our hearts. Everything felt right in a way nothing had with Gabriel. This was built on truth and trust, not deception and desperation. Planning a wedding for the second time was surreal, especially since I was doing it with actual joy this time. No elaborate productions, no trying to impress anyone, just a celebration of genuine love. Claire was my maid of honor again, and she found the whole situation hilarious. At least this time, you're not secretly learning his language to surprise him at the altar. I already know French, so that mystery is solved. What are you going to do? Surprise him by learning Italian? Please. I'm done with surprise language learning. Too much pressure. We decided on a fall wedding in a small vineyard outside Boston. About 50 guests. Elegant, but intimate. Louis's family was involved in the planning, which was a new experience for me. His mother had opinions about flowers, and his sister had ideas about music. But unlike with Gabriel, where his family would have been plotting to rob me, this felt like being welcomed into something warm and supportive. 6 months before the wedding, Louis's job sent him to France for a month-long training program. I missed him intensely, but also appreciated having time to work on wedding details and focus on my company. One evening while he was gone, I was working late at the office when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Sierra, it's Colette, Gabriel's mother." I froze. "How did you get this number? I need to speak with you. It's important. Gabriel is... he's not doing well. That's not my problem. Please, just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stayed on the line. Colette explained that Gabriel had fallen into depression after our relationship ended. He'd lost his job, his visa had been denied, and he was facing deportation back to France. She wanted to know if I'd be willing to provide a character reference or perhaps reconsider the immigration report I'd filed. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "You want me to help the man who planned to marry me for a green card, take my money, and then divorce me? The man whose mother called me a stupid cow? We made terrible mistakes, but Gabriel is my son, and he's suffering." "Good. Sierra, please." "No. Whatever happens to Gabriel is a direct consequence of his choices. He used me. He lied to me. He was going to ruin my life for his convenience. I reported him to immigration because what he did was illegal and wrong. I'm not going to undo that because he's finally facing accountability. I'm begging you. You should have thought about this before you sat in my dining room and plotted against me. Now, I'm going to hang up, and I never want to hear from you or Gabriel again. Are we clear?" I didn't wait for her answer. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. My hands were shaking, not from guilt or regret, but from anger that they still thought they could manipulate me. That Colette believed I'd be soft enough, sympathetic enough, to help them after everything they'd done. I called Louis in France and told him what happened. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Angry, but also kind of satisfied? They're finally experiencing consequences for their actions. Gabriel used me as a means to an end, and now he doesn't get that end. It's justice. You don't owe them anything. You know that, right? I do. Doesn't stop them from trying to make me feel like I do. That's their problem, not yours. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a while, processing the conversation. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, if I should show mercy or compassion. But then I remembered that night, listening to Gabriel and his mother laugh about how naive I was, how easy I was to fool, how much money they'd be able to take from me. No, I didn't owe them mercy. They'd shown me none. The incident reminded me why I'd ended up with Louis. He was the opposite of Gabriel in every way. Where Gabriel had been calculating, Louis was genuine. Where Gabriel had used romance as a weapon, Louis treated it as a gift. Where Gabriel had seen my success as something to exploit, Louis celebrated it as something to admire. When Louis returned from France, we threw ourselves into final wedding preparations. We wrote our vows together, wanting them to be personal and meaningful. Mine focused on trust, healing, and building something real together. His focused on patience, partnership, and choosing each other every day. 2 months before the wedding, we had our final cake tasting. The baker brought out 6 different options, and we sampled them all with the seriousness of people making a life-altering decision. "The chocolate is amazing," I said, "but the vanilla bean is classic," Louis countered. "We could do tiers, chocolate and vanilla bean, or we could get both and have 2 separate cakes." The baker smiled. "You two are very sweet together." "We try," Louis said, taking my hand. Looking at him across the table, covered in cake crumbs and frosting, I felt a wave of gratitude. This was what partnership was supposed to look like. Easy, fun, built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not games or manipulation or hidden agendas. The week before the wedding, Claire hosted my bachelorette party. Just a small group of close friends, wine tasting, and dinner. No drama, no chaos, just celebration. "How are you feeling?" Claire asked as we shared a bottle of excellent Pinot Noir. "Excited, nervous, happy, all of it." "No cold feet?" "Not even a little. This feels completely different from last time." With Gabriel, I was trying to convince myself it was right. With Louis, I just know it is. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve this." Later that night, slightly tipsy on good wine, I checked my phone and found a long text from my mother. She'd written about watching me grow, about being proud of the woman I'd become, about how she knew Louis was the right person for me. It was uncharacteristically emotional for her, and it made me cry happy tears. "You okay?" one of my friends asked, seeing my tears. "Yeah, just really, really okay." My wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. I woke up early in the bridal suite at the vineyard, surrounded by Claire and my bridesmaids. No panic, no dread, just pure excitement. "You're glowing," Claire said as she helped me into my dress. It was simple and elegant, nothing like the elaborate gown I'd chosen for Gabriel. This dress felt like me. Sophisticated but not showy, beautiful but not trying too hard. My mother arrived with the photographer. She took one look at me and started crying. "You're stunning, honey." "Thanks, Mom. Please don't make me cry and ruin my makeup." No promises. The ceremony was held in the vineyard's garden, with rows of grapevines providing a stunning backdrop. As I walked down the aisle, I saw Louis waiting for me. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, and his eyes were shining with emotion. His family was there. My family was there, and all our friends who'd supported us were watching with genuine happiness. This, I thought, is what it's supposed to feel like. The ceremony itself was perfect. Our officiant spoke about love as a choice you make every day, about building trust through consistency, about partnership as two people helping each other become their best selves. When it was time for vows, Louis went first. "Sierra, a year and a half ago, I met a woman who was brilliant, driven, and deeply hurt. I watched you heal and grow and become even more remarkable. Today, I promise to keep choosing you, in easy times and difficult ones. When you're confident and when you doubt yourself, I promise to support your dreams, challenge your ideas, and love you exactly as you are. You are my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life." I was definitely crying now, but I managed to get through my own vows. "Louis, you taught me more than just French. You taught me what real love looks like. Patient, honest, and supportive. You never tried to change me or use me or make me smaller. You just loved me. Today, I promise to keep trusting you, even when it's scary, to keep choosing us, even when it's hard, to be your partner in all things. Thank you for waiting while I healed. Thank you for making me laugh. Thank you for being exactly who you are." When the officiant pronounced us married, Louis kissed me and everyone applauded. We walked back down the aisle together, husband and wife, and I felt a sense of rightness I'd never experienced before. The reception was joyful and relaxed. Great food, excellent wine from the vineyard, and a live band that played everything from jazz to classic rock. Louis and I danced our first dance to a song we discovered together in France, and I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling completely at peace. During dinner, my mother gave a toast that surprised me. When Sierra canceled her first wedding, I didn't understand. I thought she was making a mistake, throwing away something good. Now I realized she was protecting herself and making space for something better. "Sierra, you've always been stronger and wiser than I gave you credit for. Louis, welcome to our family. Take care of my daughter." Louis's father toasted next. "To Sierra and Louis, may your marriage be filled with laughter, adventure, and a lifetime of love, and may you never stop teaching each other new things." Claire's toast was characteristically funny. "I've known Sierra since college, and I've never seen her this happy. Louis, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Also, thank you for learning French, because now when Sierra and I travel to France, she can translate for me and I can pretend to be sophisticated." Everyone laughed, and Louis squeezed my hand under the table. As the evening progressed, I found myself looking around the room with genuine gratitude. These people had supported me through my worst moments and celebrated with me at my best. This wedding wasn't about impressing anyone or proving anything. It was just about love. Late in the evening, Louis and I snuck away from the reception for a private moment. We walked through the vineyard, still in our wedding clothes, holding hands. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Anderson?" Louis asked. "Perfectly happy, Mr. Anderson. No regrets about the big dramatic wedding we didn't have?" "Not even a little. This was perfect because it was real." We stood there among the grapevines, watching the sunset over the hills. I thought about where I'd been a year and a half ago. Devastated, betrayed, planning to cancel a wedding to a man who'd never loved me. Now I was married to someone who knew all my flaws and loved me anyway. "What are you thinking?" Louis asked. "That I'm grateful. For everything, even the painful parts. Because they led me here. To a vineyard in Massachusetts? To you, smartass." He laughed and pulled me close. "I love you, Sierra. I love you too." In French and English and every other language. We headed back to the reception, where our friends were waiting to continue celebrating. As we danced and laughed and toasted to the future, I realized something important. I'd started learning French to surprise a man who didn't deserve it. But in the process, I'd surprised myself. I'd discovered strength I didn't know I had. I'd built a life I was proud of, and I'd found love that was real. Sometimes the best revenge is building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. Sometimes healing looks like moving forward instead of looking back. And sometimes the person you were trying to become for someone else turns out to be exactly who you needed to be for yourself. 3 months after the wedding, Louis and I were having coffee at our favorite cafe when I got an email notification. It was from a women's magazine asking if I'd be interested in writing an article about my experience with relationship fraud and recovery. Apparently, my story had gotten around somehow, and they thought it could help others. What do you think? I asked Lewis, showing him the email. I think you should do it. Your story is powerful. If it helps even one person avoid what you went through, it's worth it. I wrote the article over the following weeks. It was honest and raw, detailing the betrayal, the recovery, and the lessons I'd learned. I talked about red flags I'd ignored, about the importance of trusting your instincts, and about how healing isn't linear but is always possible. The article was published 3 months later and went viral. I received hundreds of emails from people sharing their own stories of betrayal and thanking me for speaking out. Several women told me they'd ended relationships after reading it, recognizing similar patterns in their own partners. A few men thanked me for highlighting the importance of genuine partnership. One email stood out. It was from a woman named Jennifer who'd been in a similar situation with her fiancé. She'd learned a language to surprise him and overheard him admitting the relationship was fake. My article had helped her realize she wasn't alone and gave her courage to leave. You saved me years of pain, she wrote. Thank you for sharing your story. I showed the email to Lewis, feeling emotional. This is why I wrote it. To help people like her. You're amazing, he said simply. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Work continued to thrive. Lewis's career advanced, and our marriage grew stronger every day. We took trips to France regularly, visiting the places that had become meaningful to us. Each time my French improved a little more, and I fell a little more in love with the culture. On our first anniversary, Louis surprised me with a gift: enrollment in an advanced translation program. I know you love French, he said, and I thought maybe you'd enjoy learning to translate professionally, just as a side project, something for you. I was touched by how well he knew me. That's perfect. Thank you. That evening, we had dinner at the same restaurant where he'd proposed. As we toasted to our first year of marriage, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here, from that devastating dinner with Gabriel and his mother to this moment of genuine happiness and love. What are you thinking about? Louis asked. Just how far I've come. How different my life is now compared to what I thought it would be. Better or worse? So much better. I thought I knew what love was with Gabriel, but I had no idea. What we have, this is real love. Agreed. Though I have to say, I'm grateful to Gabriel in a weird way. How so? If he hadn't been a complete fraud, you might have married him, and then I never would have met you. I laughed. That's a very generous way to look at it. I prefer to think that the universe was just correcting a massive error. That works too. As we finished dinner and walked hand in hand back to our car, I thought about the woman I'd been on that terrible night when I discovered Gabriel's betrayal. She'd been strong enough to confront him, smart enough to protect herself, and brave enough to start over. I was proud of her, and I was proud of the woman I'd become since then. Learning French had started as a romantic gesture for someone who didn't deserve it, but it had become something so much more. A symbol of my resilience, a doorway to new experiences, and ultimately, a path to real love. Not bad for a few years of verb conjugations and pronunciation practice. Want to know something funny? I asked Louis as we drove home. Always. I almost gave up on French after everything with Gabriel. I almost decided the whole thing was tainted and I should just quit. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. Because if I had, I never would have continued lessons with you. Never would have gone to France. Never would have fallen in love with an actual good human being who happened to teach French. So what you're saying is, I owe my marriage to your stubbornness? Exactly. My stubbornness and Gabriel's spectacular failure as a human. We both laughed, and I realized I could joke about it now. The pain had transformed into something else. A story I could tell, a lesson I could share, a reminder of my own strength. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever felt stupid for trusting the wrong person, if you've ever wondered whether you'll recover from heartbreak, let me tell you, you will. Not immediately, not easily, but you will. And sometimes, when you least expect it, you'll find something better than what you lost. Something real, something honest, something that makes all the pain worth it. That's what I found. And that's what I wish for anyone who's ever had their heart broken by someone who didn't deserve it in the first place. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing these difficult but important life lessons. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is living well. Really, really well. Preferably while speaking fluent French and married to someone who actually loves you. Life has a funny way of working out when you stop accepting less than you deserve and start building something that actually makes you happy. Gabriel taught me what I didn't want. Louis showed me what I did. And French? French became mine. All mine. And nobody can take that away.